So, Dee, I was all excited because this week we're doing the letter P, and I thought it was going to stand for my Indiana Pacers.
There's nothing nice I can say here. But then the Thunder won. By the way, I edited out what you wrote. But then the Thunder won.
I can't
Okay.
even remember what I wrote, but I say P is like for Fooey. Our star player got injured right away, and
But other than that, it was a really exciting series.
yes, yes, and it is
And
it's
I am,
sad.
it's sad for your player because
Yes,
that injury, I haven't heard anymore, but that's a really devastating injury. And it's going to take some time to recover, right?
they said it would be about a year.
That's what I thought. So I'm really sorry for him. What's his name again? Because I don't pay attention to these things.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Tyrese Halliburton. So, just as an aside, one of the ladies who came to visit at the open garden, this is not a Blue Thunder shirt. This says Soleil. But she had on Thunder Blue with Thunder, Go Thunder. Of
Yeah,
course she did,
right.
because everybody's very excited. And
Yes.
she goes, "You and Carol are going to talk about the game, right?" And I said, "No, I'm not talking to Carol about the game." And then I opened this up and you wanted to talk about the game, but okay, life goes
Well,
on.
I have one more thing to say. I did send you that very funny Instagram of the
Oh, yeah,
parade,
super hilarious. Yeah, thanks.
and the players are up on top, sitting on those open buses. And then there were low, like, I don't know if they were power lines or wires,
They're power lines.
kept trying to knock them off.
They were hitting them in the head because they're like 7 feet
I
tall.
I shouldn't
And the
laugh.
truth, the truth is, we don't have double decker buses in Oklahoma City, so there'd be no reason. You know what I mean? Nobody thought, hey, those might be tall, and you have 7 foot tall people on top of your bus. Anyway, it was new for us. It would have been new for you too.
It would have. Yes, yes.
And I
Anyway,
heard there was a lot of ragging on about our parade and how it wasn't anything like New York City or whatever. And I was like, we're
you're not New
we're
York City.
we're not New York City.
Thank
We're a
goodness.
small, beautiful city, and we love our city. And I'll be honest, I love Indianapolis too because I've been there. All
All
right,
right.
shall we get started?
Yes, that's enough basketball talk before somebody
Oh,
says, "Why isn't is this a basketball podcast?" No,
no, no,
gardening,
it's about the
gardening,
garden.
gardening.
Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about basketball only once a year, flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dean Ash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I still have a large garden out in the country, and I have a funny thing about that in a
And
minute,
I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
which is big enough. Big enough. We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening. We would like you to love it too. We're doing our best.
Yes, are doing our best, and we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But let's move on to this week's episode, all about gardening. Hello, Dee. It is
Hello,
Sunday
Carol.
afternoon.
Because we couldn't record on Friday because what was I doing, Carol?
You were getting ready to open your garden, and I very kindly sent a text because I thought I knew, I knew. I'm like, Dee wants to postpone. So I sent a text and says, would it work out better for you if we did it over the weekend on Sunday? And you're like, yes, please.
Yeah, please, I got to get to work. And really Friday was nuts because Bill decided to take off and help me. That's all I'm
Oh,
going to say
nice.
about
And
that.
for those who are listening, not watching, Dee did the air quotes around the word help, just to clarify.
Yeah. Bill doesn't garden. And I ended up doing three more things that I wouldn't have had to do because he happened to be home, but that's fine.
Yeah,
So
it's
let's
wait a minute,
start.
wait a minute. So
Yes.
I imagine one of those funny Instagrams where they go where the wife says, "Hey, we're going to have company. We need to get things cleaned up." And so the man starts like cleaning out the attic or some
Yeah.
worthless thing that doesn't need to be
Yeah.
done.
Very similar. He needed iced teas. He felt like people had to have iced tea. I was like, we have water. Water's enough. He goes, no, no, we got to have sweet tea and bottled unsweet tea. And we have to get it at Sam's. And he was going to try to push it around with his walker. I said, I'll go get it. So I went and got it at lunch hour with all the fuminess in the world, but it all worked out. We got through it. So I just go on and tell you about the garden tour since I've been jabbering on.
Yeah, you tell us about the gardening tour and then I'll tell you what I was doing in the garden.
Okay. So I did not go to the winter's parade in Oklahoma City. I was working in the garden and I was getting ready and I weeded and mulched and Michelle came over and helped. And we still, this upper wall bed is just a hot mess. And I was just like, please don't look at it. Um, and then what else did I do? I cleaned out the pond. I worked in the pond. I got all the rocks back up on the pond. I worked so hard. So the one good thing about Bill taking off on Friday is he got to see how hard it is to prepare. Because usually I work during the week. He doesn't know, he's at work. So there was that. And then everybody came. So many people came. 5 groups from Tulsa came. I was like,
Wow.
dang, why? And then there was a couple who came from Dallas and they stayed in a Airbnb in Guthrie, which they were super sweet. And people brought me presents, like nice things like lip balm that's made of beeswax and things I can actually use. And
Nice.
and my dear client and friend who has San Isidore Gardens up in Tulsa. That's her private garden named after Saint Isidore. She came down and brought me A Gentle Plea for Chaos,
Oh,
that
that nice
book.
book. Yes,
Yeah, which I don't have. I had read a library books or I read it on Kindle. So that was really, really nice. Now,
that is.
what did you do?
So this is Sunday. So since we recorded a week ago Friday, I have booked in my weekends. Went to one nephew's garden last Saturday where we trimmed shrubs and his mom was helping and we got trees, a few trees trimmed. We trimmed up the shrubs, got everything nice looking. And they live where you could just put everything at the curb and then the city will pick it up. And then
Nice.
this Saturday, I went to another nephew's house. He's had it for 2 years, and I didn't get out there his first summer. So he had some weed trees and stuff, and we left the biggest pile at his curb of weed trees that had come up in some grasses, and I whacked back to stubs some burning bushes, and I really probably shocked
Ugh.
him with how, I get out of my truck and it's like I grab my shears and I trim this and I grab my
Yeah, there's no
reciprocating saw.
chatting. We got things to do, right?
Right. And then I'm like, the only thing I asked him if I could do was, could I cut back this invasive burning bush? And he said, sure. So, but he worked hard. His mom and dad came and helped, and everybody worked hard. And I think I left him a little shell shocked by it all, but
Everybody lived.
everybody lived. And so, when we talk about our book this week, Dee, because you picked out a book and then I went to my library and got it, I had to go to
Mhm.
Courtyard and Greenhouse. And so it's your fault that I bought hollyhocks at the end of June. But I would,
It's a good time to buy hollyhocks
yeah,
for you guys.
she had some really nice seedlings, and I've been wanting to add a bunch out to this one bed in the vegetable garden. So
Hmm.
I bought those and I got them planted this morning, and I picked the first currant tomatoes, those little teeny tiny things. So, and
I
in
saw I had
between,
some pear tomatoes out
yeah,
there, and I had tomatoes this week too. Now that I think about it, I did not eat them because
right.
I'm not supposed to, but
But in between all that, I've done some weeding, I've done some mulching, I did some um, mowing,
yeah,
all kinds of
sounds like
good
you've been
fun.
busy. I want to
But it's been
explain
hot
really,
as Hades, so I've had to do it all in the early morning because,
it was
we
really
were
hot out there. We went to 7:30 mass this morning, and I threw on my clothes when I got home right after I cooked breakfast and went out there, and that's why I'm. So what this is, it's sunscreen and stuff. So yeah, it's hot. It's hot and it's humid. What's the temperature there right now?
right now. Well, we're going the downward slide now, so
Are you?
um,
We are.
it's getting cool. I mean, it's going to be in the upper 80s this week instead of the 90s. So
Oh, okay.
I would tell you the temperature. I have to look it up.
That's right, because you don't have on your Apple Watch. It's 89 here right
You know
now,
what?
and we're gonna get up to 93.
It's 81 heading to 88.
Yep. It
And
must be summer.
that's pretty much our week this week. It's going to be in the upper 80s, and then I'm looking forward, and I shouldn't do that. There's a couple 90-degree days in there, but it is
Yeah,
summer.
enjoy the 80s. 80s are nice. So, playing favorites. What's your favorite this week?
So my favorite is going to be all those tall lilies out there, the Orion pets, and I don't know what all I have out there because I refuse to keep track of anything anymore. It's just pretty. It's a big tall lily. They're starting to bloom. They smell really nice. I think my neighbor enjoys the scent because I think he mentions it in a flattering way. But they look really good and they are going to be my favorite this week. How about
So
you?
that's funny because your lilies are ahead of mine. That's
How
how
in the world?
weird. Well, we've been cold all spring, and so mine have just formed buds. I'm telling you, my garden doesn't, people were very sweet about it, but in my opinion, it doesn't look that good. I looked out there, I was like, "Nah, it's been eaten by deer, it's not growing correctly, it just looks wrong." But a lot of people said that when they came through about the vegetable garden, all of theirs were behind too. So it's been a weird year. I won't tell you what my friend Jennifer from Ladybug calls this year. It's not pretty. But
Well, one other thing, you mentioned the
mhm,
vegetable garden. I did pull out all the pea vines. They had started to get that powdery mildew, so in
I
the
hate that
trash.
stuff.
All the lettuce looked at 90-degree days and said goodbye, started bolting, and so they're all in the compost pile. So yeah, it's summertime.
It's summertime. So speaking of summertime, my favorite this week is my Lysianthus. I did a reel about it, and so I wanted to say something quickly about it. So P. Allen Smith, after my reel, texted, well, commented on the reel and said, "Dee, what is your favorite variety of Lysianthus?" And I thought, variety? I hadn't even thought about that because I've only grown them one other year, and these
Yeah.
overwintered from last year. So, and they were given to me. My friend Jennifer gave them to me. So I wanted to tell you, I called Jennifer because I was like, I don't know what to tell Alan. I just know that I like these. These are pretty. And she said, okay, so the ones you have are the Arena series because she gave them to me. She goes, the ones you bought this year from Burpee, I'm just about sure they're the Arena series. But there are two other series that are cool too. And there are things, and then I didn't know all this about Lizzie Anthus, but there's level one, two, and three, and they bloom at different times.
Really?
Yeah, who knew? I mean, well, who knew? You know who knew? The flower farmers know. I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I'm a gardener. But last year we also grew the Roseanne series. It did not overwinter. Usually Lysianthus doesn't overwinter here, but it did last year because we were mild. The Roseanne series is a little bit less cold tolerant, less hardy than the Arena series. But the Roseanne series has Roseanne Brown, which was unbelievably gorgeous. And then there's a really dark blue. Let me see if I've got that Roseanne. I think it's this one. Yeah. Roseanne Black Pearl. Carol, look that up really quickly.
Okay, I'll look that up
Roseanne.
really pretty. I'm sitting here
And
thinking,
then
why didn't we talk about Lysianthus when we did the letter L?
we did talk about them, but I didn't know anything. Now I know stuff because I asked questions. So there's also Blue Echo, but she thinks I had Blue Arena. And she said Arena or the Arena series is closest to the species, which they're known as prairie gentian. And prairie gentian is a native in the United States. So Arena are the hardiest and toughest. But then she said there's a new one on the block called Mariachi. And she said they are super ruffled. So
Huh.
that's a lot about
Well,
Lysianthus.
the Roseanne
That,
Black Pearl Lysianthus is very good. And then
oh,
when
so pretty.
I
Dark,
did the
dark purple.
search, but here's the dumb thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess it's not as dumb when you click on it. Amazon had a thing for Lysianthus thornless roses, and I'm like, there's no such thing. What are they talking about?
It's the Lysianthus. They call them a thornless rose, which isn't, they don't look like roses, so I don't know
No,
why they
I
call
guess a
them that.
little bit because they have a lot of petals. They look a little rosy like,
They
but
look more like ranunculus than they do like roses, but whatever. Look up Roseanne Brown. They are so pretty.
all
They're
right.
I grew those last year,
I'm
and
gonna
I
have
will
to
be
remember
growing
to
those
put links in
again
the show
next year.
notes.
I'll help you.
Lysianthus, Roseanne Brown.
Roseanne Brown. And there's a two and a three and
That's
all
really,
that.
I could see
Isn't
why
that
somebody would
pretty?
get all gaga over Lysianthus. We're treading on a little bit of a dangerous area, Dee. This could become
We are. So we should move on. Let's move on
just,
to the question of the week.
okay. So I'll do a question and then I have a question for you. So when I went to my one sister's, she has very mature trees. She lives where we grew up, and my dad planted them 1960, 61. very mature trees. So she will have to get an arborist out there. Now, I'm not afraid in the summertime to clip a branch that's smacking you in the head when you're mowing and getting it out of the way. And
Right,
we did a
right,
little
right,
bit of
right.
that. But she has an
But
oak. This oak is huge. And she wants an arborist to come because there's one branch that just goes way out over the house. And she says, if that thing falls off, I don't think it will. She says it's going to take the house. But anyway, the only time you should trim oaks is once we've had a frost. You want the insects to be kind of gone because the oak
they
wilt is a
spread stuff.
very serious pest spread by insects and they go right after those open wounds. So I sent back a text and said, remember, don't touch that oak till after frost. So I don't know if they'll probably wait until then to do all the tree trimming and do it in one trip or what. But anyway, so I'm not afraid to cut back a branch that I can handle that's smacking me in the face when I mow, but leave
Hmm.
those oaks until after frost. And
Okay.
now,
Well,
my question for you is, what was the most asked question at your open garden day?
well, at first I thought, oh, I don't know. There were so many questions. But then when people go through a garden, they're looking at plants.
Right,
And so there
right.
were lots and lots of questions about what is this plant? And I was really gratified by one lady who said, I read your post on the best hydrangeas to grow in Oklahoma's finicky climate, which is one of my most popular blog posts. And she goes, and because of you, I've been successful with hydrangeas.
Good
That made me
deal.
happy. And then but the most asked question was, what is that tall green plant in your cutting garden? It was always said like that because it doesn't look very good. And that was the common milkweed because it's quit blooming, it's sending up great big shoots. It's a colonizer, so it makes a big, huge clump and runners. And so I'd tell them what it is, and then I would say, and tomorrow I'm going to go out and chop it all down almost to the ground because I want new shoots to come up in late summer so that the monarchs that are eating, who are going to have babies, the ones that aren't in, is it diaspora? They've quit mating. I want them to have something to eat and they won't eat old leaves, which people thought was really interesting. And that's about it. I mean, they asked me about the crocosmia because it's blooming right now. Um,
Well, and I
those
saw your
that's
Instagram story. A
pelagias.
lot of people were really blown away by your lavender, which is the variety phenomenal.
Right, which always cracks them. I mean, it always cracks me up because I'll say, well, it's phenomenal. And every
And
time
then
people
they
go,
go,
it
yes, it
is
is
phenomenal.
phenomenal,
And
but
I'm
what
like,
variety is it?
right. And I'm like, that's the variety name. And it is pretty phenomenal. But I can't tell you how many people came through and said, I can't grow lavender. And I said, you can't grow it in the ground. And they go, huh? And I go, you have to grow it in a pot or in a raised bed here. It's just too hard to grow. It's just too
Yeah.
hard. We have
Now,
too much variable weather.
my lavender from seed that I grew 2 years ago is blooming nicely. So I'm happy.
Good for you.
It's in the
I'm so
ground.
glad. Yeah, but you're in Indiana and you have totally
Yeah,
different
I'm in
soil.
paradise.
Well, not the year I visited. However, I hear it is very nice. All right. So anything else we wanted, or shall we move on to the quote?
I'm going to do a quote so we can move on to the letter P. Have regular hours for work and play. Make each day both useful and pleasant, and prove that you understand the worth of time by employing it well. Louisa May Alcott.
I think she would have been our friend.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think she would have. All right, flowers. P is for, and you said phlox because the
Yes,
Pacers lost. So we're talking about phlox instead.
we were always going to talk about phlox D. And so these, to me, these are very cottagey flowers.
Yeah,
Um,
I grow all three.
I grow all three as well. So creeping phlox is Phlox subulata and it blooms in the spring.
Yeah, it's the most common one. Everybody grows
And
it.
it's very boring after that. It's just a flat bunch of green.
It's a ground clover. It doesn't look like anything, and you know,
It's
it's
boring.
just okay. It's boring. And, oh, it's boring, and you know what? Nuts Edge likes to grow up in it. But luckily, you just lift it, because like the little rug it is, and you pull.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, oh,
Next.
Next, I'm going to stay in spring bloom, and you brought up, and I didn't list it. I don't know why I didn't, which is Phlox divaricata, which is the woodland phlox.
Mhm.
Very pretty in the spring. I've got that. I've got the pink variety. Most often they are blue.
Blue, white, or pink. They have all three. And I grow blue and I have one that's white, but I really want blue because I love the blue. I have like a carpet of it now because I've grown it for 25 years.
I have pink in the
And
pink garden.
but when it's done, it's just boring. Just sits
It's
there.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. We're really
People
we're
go, people go, what is that? Because it's a little taller, I'm short.
right.
Well, so it's about 8 inches tall after it's through blooming, and you can spread seeds around, and then it just sits there, which is okay.
Yeah. Not everything needs to shine every moment in the garden.
No, nothing does really. Okay, and then the last one is my personal favorite of the moment, which is Phlox paniculata. I
Yes.
love phlox, and there's other phloxes too. There's that one that is a mix, and I could look it up, but we're just going to talk about these three. So, Phlox paniculata is the tall garden phlox. All three of these are native to the United States,
Yes.
which is cool.
Yes. And Phlox paniculata is a nice summer flower. Now let's rag on it too, because guess what its problem is? It also starts with a
Mildew,
P. Powdery mildew.
mildew.
And
Ooh.
so if
So grow it in the
powdery
sun.
yeah, if powdery mildew bothers you, you will want to seek varieties that are powdery mildew resistant. They won't be
Mhm.
completely free of it, but they will have a little less. I just let it self-sow itself around.
Yeah, I mean, mine doesn't sell so much, and I have gosh, I have a lot of varieties of Phlox paniculata. It is a great plant to just stick in a place where you like, oh, I have a hole that has a needs a vertical element. You just stick that in there. And I shared a few years ago that I went to the King's Garden, which was the Prince's garden at the time, and he had this gorgeous hot purple, just amazing purple phlox. And so I found one that was similar called ultraviolet magenta or something like that. It's a Brewer
Right?
Winners one. Well, I've got two of those, and one of them has decided to kind of up and die. I don't know why. You
Ah,
know how they'll just wilt and then
yeah.
they go, I'm dying. And I go, why? Your friend here, right next door,
I didn't like
is
how you
fine.
planted me.
It's been there for a year and it was happy last year. I can't
I'm
figure it
not. I
out.
wasn't happy. I was faking it.
And then I've got some of the Garden Girl series, which I really like those. Those are good. They're very mildew resistant. They come in different colors. And they're all start with Garden Girl. There's Garden Girl Party Girl, Garden Girl, I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
Well, and mine, I don't know the varieties anymore. I mean,
I have
I've
a pass
just
along. I have the
yeah,
pass
pass
along one.
along is a great one to have. They're all just sort of a purplish pink out there and they bloom and
And
I've
they're happy,
long
right?
yeah, they're happy and they come up in different places and I'm like, you go plant, you go.
You go. I've got one called Bright Eyes, which has the
I
center,
had bright eyes at one
guide.
time, but I don't know that it's out there anymore.
I mean, it's an easy flower to grow if it's in the sun. That's, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Oh, pollinators. We should bring up pollinators. They're a pea.
Pollinators, why didn't we put that in our show
They
notes,
like
Dee?
they like Phlox paniculata a
They
lot.
do. They
They
do.
want to like Phlox divaricata, but it has a lot of fake blooms. And so it frustrates them, I can tell. But if you want to have beautiful moths in your garden, beautiful butterflies, hummingbirds, you want Phlox paniculata.
That you do. That you do. All right, are we done with phlox?
I'm done with phlox. Let's move on to petunias.
Petunias. We have talked about these incessantly.
This year especially. I don't
What
know
what is there
why.
new to say about them? What I said about them is if they sort of peter out in the heat, in at least around these parts, you can cut them back and then they'll flush out new growth and carry you through into fall if you
Hmm.
want them to. I've
And
got
then
some
I
new
talked
ones.
about what's the new one that was sent to us by there it is. I found it. Okay, so we got one from AAS this year. We got some seeds. Did you get it
I
too?
did not plant the seeds, but I will say this. I have a seedling petunia that came up in the patio that's a lovely pink. And I'm like, oh, aren't you pretty? And you get to stay because you're a pretty petunia and not like a nasty weed.
That's true. So we got seeds for this year. Last year it was Petunia Success Silver Wave, which was a great petunia. And this year we got Petunia Tidal Wave Silver. And that thing I sowed about, whatever they gave us of seeds, and I only had two seedlings, but they're doing great in this really hot
Good.
area and they're starting to bloom. I mean, we're at the very beginning, so I need to pinch them off today, but they're starting to bloom and they look really good. So I have to say, the wave petunias are fabulous. They just are.
Yeah, you
And
can't beat those waves. They've really kind of revolutionized.
mhm.
And
And there's
I,
also, I've got Petunia Purple Pirouette. I just saw it on here. I just bought it and it's really doing well so far. But you know what? It's going to get hot here and they're all going to poop out because petunias poop out in the heat
yeah, they
eventually.
do. But again, if you cut them back and give them a little watering, a little fertilizer, in my
It
climate, they will.
helps.
They
It
will come
helps.
back.
They sometimes not. Just depends.
So I did get some from Burpee, a
Hmm.
really pretty blue one. It's right. It's right here in this window box out here. And so I'd have to go out and get the tag or I'll get the sheet and I'll put it in the show notes because I'm impressed by the blueness of it.
It's
I
really
am
blue.
impressed. So I'll
Good.
get the name for it and I'll put it in our show notes.
Okay. And then I'm going to let you say the next flower because it's your flower.
And you're gonna, well, and you want to roll your eyes and you hard to
No, I
coordinate.
don't. I don't know why you think that. I grow them every year.
Yes. And so we couldn't do pea without pansies.
Right.
Pansies do not like the heat. Mine have all pretty much petered out.
Mine are done.
The violas are done too. We can put them all in the same class. But I think the mistake that people make with pansies is they're afraid to plant them too early. And I'm like, you can't plant them
Oh
too
no.
early.
No,
No,
you
no,
can plant
no.
them just the minute they're ready to go out. And they're pretty easy to grow from seed. But here, I don't know about Indiana, but in Oklahoma, you want to start those seeds mid-December because it takes a while. They're not as slow as Lysianthus. Well, I guess they are. They are really slow because you're going to plant them out pretty early too. They're not as slow as Lysianthus. They're both slow. Slow, slow, slow. So,
I I would think early January here you would get those pansy seeds going.
mhm,
And but here's the thing. I like to plant pansies in the fall too,
mhm.
but usually they show up around the end of August and it's still too hot for them
It's
here.
too hot. You got to put them in later. I
And
usually put mine in October.
you can't you can't go find them in October. If you find them, they're all leggy and overgrown because they've gotten them in much sooner. So I wish the growers would try to have them a little bit later.
By like September, maybe.
Yeah, mid-September here. I'd plant them first day of true fall.
I think it's complicated because, it's hot. And you and I've been in those big old greenhouses where they start plants, and even with all the big, huge water coolers going, it's still hot, and you have to have a little bit of chill to start them. So
Yeah,
I think it must be complicated to make them as a fall crop.
and I know Courtney does not try to grow pansies and violas in the summer to plant in the she buys them from another place and she says I don't know how they do it.
I
But
don't
I
either.
and she usually just gets a few flats because she knows I'll buy them. And so I'll buy them, but then I'm like this is too early, but I'll get them anyway.
I love orange and black pansies and violas for fall. I just
Yes.
think they're so, so pretty with pumpkins.
Yes, they are. And then they overwinter in the ground,
and
especially. And
they
then you're like,
and
this
then
is
they
the
look
wrong
stupid.
color.
That's right. Then they look stupid for spring. So and that's another complication. You might have to replace them, but it is what it is. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, cool. All right, here's the next quote. The best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. William Wordsworth. I love that.
That
It's
is very
true.
good.
We should
All
all
right.
remember that. So vegetables, P is for, and you said potatoes. Did you grow
Potatoes.
potatoes this year?
I
I
did
did
not grow
not.
potatoes this year, but I've read in my I've got the big bad book of botany. He wrote some
Mhm.
stuff about potatoes, and so a couple of things caught my eye in here, and then a couple of things I wrote down. Um, did you know that this is the fourth largest food crop in the world?
I didn't know that, but it makes perfect sense.
The top
I eat a
crops
lot of
are
potatoes,
wheat,
okay?
rice, and maize or corn, as he says.
Corn, yeah.
So for potatoes to be ahead of soybeans, that's big.
Yeah, but a lot of cultures eat. I mean, I know we use a lot of soy in products, especially packaged products,
Yes.
but people eat a lot of potatoes all over the world.
And in Europe, they didn't start eating potatoes until the Spanish brought them over from South America. In but between 1700 and 1900, they just took off in Europe. So much so that we all know that
Potato famine.
the potato famine in Ireland. But here's another thing that I thought was kind of interesting. Um, the reason is because everybody planted the exact same variety over and over and
Yeah, that's
over.
exactly what happened. Yeah, they got slips of the same and saved back their potatoes, and it was all the exact
No,
same
no
variety.
diversity.
If they
The
had
other,
done diversity, there wouldn't have been a famine.
right. And so where is that I read that?
There was also a problem with certain groups of people hoarding the potatoes that were working,
Yeah.
and so people were starving to death. Anyway, and it was all due to a fungus, wasn't it?
Yes, it was due to a fungus, Phytophthora infestans, late blight.
Okay. Late blight.
Hmm.
Oh, say, is that the same late blight that affects certain tomatoes?
It could be.
It could be because they're both in that same,
It
nightshade
it says
deal.
here total annual consumption of potatoes per person 60 pounds.
I probably eat that much. I probably do. I eat potatoes a
Yeah.
lot. Because even though it's a nightshade like tomatoes, it doesn't bother me. I have no idea why. All right, so you wanted
Oh,
to
one
allow
I
us,
found the
oh,
part that scared
another
me.
fact. Okay.
Well, no, this is important. Now we're going to have a serious conversation, Dee. So don't,
Well, I thought that was pretty serious already.
well, it's going to get worse.
Oh,
It says, he says, and I'd have to look it up, the agribusiness company Monsanto
oh, of course.
is a leader in creating genetically modified potatoes and all kinds of
Gross.
agriculture. Now there are many modified potato varieties that have been spliced with compounds from pesticides. So,
Right, so that they don't have to worry about potato weevils and stuff.
right. So, how we always say, well, nothing you grow in your home garden is going to be a GMO. Well, I think you better take another look at your potato. And also, I'm going to just take us down one more
Especially if
notch.
you're growing potatoes from the store. Although if you're growing organic potatoes, which don't have that stuff on them so that they sprout, which you're not supposed to, because you're really supposed to grow potatoes that have been for sure, they're for sure potatoes for growing. But say you wanted to grow your potatoes because you had some potatoes in the closet and you thought, I'll just grow those in a grow bag. Those are almost always organic, so I doubt if Monsanto has anything to do with it. So I'm not too worried about you as a home potato grower. However, as a home potato eater, hmm,
Well,
maybe.
here's the other thing that I read this week, and I'll have to source the article. Potatoes have been added to the Dirty Dozen list.
Yeah, yeah, I knew that.
They
Hmm.
just got added as number 12
Hmm.
because 90% were found to contain chlorprof chlorprofam chlorprofam. We'll
What the
put
heck
it
is that?
a chemical banned in Europe due to health concerns.
Oh,
Chlorpropan. And I tell people when I was in college, now this was the 70s and the early 80s, we went to a potato farm here in Indiana. And the first thing they did before they dug all the potatoes was spray the
they
whole
spray them
field, sprayed it all
with
down with
Roundup.
glyphosate. And then at that point, I became an organic potato girl. Now, I will eat unorganic potatoes, but I will never eat the skins because I saw the process and I'm like, oh, the skins are coming
Well,
off.
and they also put the skin on. I mean, they put that stuff on them to keep them from sprouting.
Yes. So,
Okay,
anyway,
I'll just say if I'm eating at home, which is 99.9% of the time, I only eat organic potatoes. They're easy to find now, easy. And
yes,
I
they
really
are.
like the little yellow potatoes.
Yes.
And I made the most fabulous little yellow potato salad this week when our friends came over to eat. I finally had friends over again.
Nice. So
Yeah.
anyway, they you can grow potatoes in the ground. You can also, as you mentioned, grow bags are very helpful.
They work
Um,
great because you just tip them over and all the little potatoes roll out.
yeah, although I don't know why, but the last few times that I've tried, I just have not gotten good potato production out of it. And I don't know if it's the variety I'm choosing, if
Hmm.
I'm something's not right, but I do like that when you grow potatoes, you have to chit them first.
I love the word.
Yes. Yes. And then you put them
Explain
in
what
a
explain what chitting is.
well, you put it like in a sunny windowsill or whatever, and then so it starts to sprout. And once it starts to sprout, then you can plant it in the ground. And it's
Hmm.
called chitting.
And you can cut them apart and make sure you have eyes, enough eyes, like two eyes per section if you
Yeah.
want to. And then you let them dry for a little bit
Yeah.
before after you
Yeah. You
cut
let
them
them
because
cure.
you don't
Yes.
want them to rot.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And then plant them and they're if they're successful, then you could end up with a lot of potatoes. Do you remember when I think I'm gonna say it was a graft, but I'm not sure when they grafted like tomatoes and potatoes together?
Yes, I
That
do remember this.
that didn't last very long. That's not a
No,
good
that was
thing.
dumb. Talk about two things that would be hard to graft together and not break. You know what I mean? Because they're
Yes.
both brittle. They're both really brittle when they're young, especially. All right. Name one of your favorite potatoes that you've grown. I'll name one. Ready?
You know what? I haven't grown enough to have a favorite. Like I
Oh,
bought the
red.
red ones at Menards one time and the yellow ones
I
at
like
Menards.
I like red Pontiac.
I do like I think it was called Russian banana or something like that.
Yes, that was a good one too. I grew that one too. Yeah.
I
It's a
think,
little long fingerling.
yes, the fingerling tomatoes, listen to me, potatoes. And if I was
Mama
going to grow
Tia.
potatoes, I would grow things like the fingerlings that you're not going to find at the store.
Yeah, there's no reason to. I mean, red Pontiac probably is pretty common, but you don't see as many red potatoes as you used to. So it's kind of like red onions. I grow red onions because you can buy really good sweet onions anywhere. It's not hard anymore. All right, so let's go on to the next thing because we have jabbered on about potatoes, haven't we?
We have, and it was my fault because I read out of that book.
No, I
Uh,
appreciate it. I learned a lot. Thanks.
Peas, give peas a chance. And like pansies, early sowing is
That should
key.
be, oh my gosh, that should so be a gardener t-shirt.
It
Get,
probably
you
is.
could do a little pea and it kept a little smiley face, little hands, and it could say give peas a
You know
chance.
what? I'm going to guarantee you that somebody's already come up with that
Well,
t-shirt.
I want that t-shirt and I want it in green. And you need
Okay.
one too. Okay, so again, sow them early, like pansies. In fact, sow them at the same time.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
the pansies you're going to be planting out,
I
but you're going to sow the peas.
right. I plant mine on around March 17th. Three types of peas with me together. Snap peas, snow peas, shelling
Shelling
peas.
peas.
Try
I
some of all
plant
of
mine
them.
in February,
I
mid-February.
Yeah. And then like we said, then harvest and eat. They're delicious. And somebody
They are
said,
really good.
oh, I was at the family reunion and my cousin's son's wife, I don't know what she's related to me, but uh she had messaged me on Facebook a while back because I was showing off my pea pods and hers hadn't even flowered yet, but she planted a lot later. And she lives south of me, and I'm like, you could plant March 1st. And then I said, and then make sure you plant shelling peas. And she said, we don't like regular peas. And I'm like, you haven't tried these peas. You haven't tried homegrown shelling peas.
Mm-mm. If you
So
try
give
homegrown peas, there's nothing better. I
no.
don't care. I mean, and I feel the same way about the other peas, the
So to
bitter
wrap it
snap.
up, give peas a chance. Next,
Hmm. I'm not talking about this next one. You just go right ahead. I'm not even discussing that.
purslane is a terrible weed in my garden. Is it
Mine
in your
too.
garden?
That's why. Oh my gosh, yes, it gets in my brick path. I mean, my paths, my rock paths, all the
Yes.
time. I fight it
And
constantly.
it is also grown as a cultivated plant. And every time I mentioned on my old blog years ago that I was pulling out purslane and throwing it away, people would tell me what a great source of
Yeah, eat it.
omega-3 fats and stuff. And
Mhm.
I'm like, no, it's
No.
still a weed in my garden. I am not going to grow it. But we should mention it because it gives us a chance to talk about Charles Dudley Warner, who wrote My Summer in a Garden, 1899. And he wrote one of the best lines about purslane that I've ever read. It grows as if the devil is in it.
That's the truth, man. And that's
It
not to be confused with cultivated purslane, which is portulaca.
for
That's
the
okay
flower, for the
for the
flower.
flower. But this does not produce a pretty flower. It's ugly and it's fleshy and it breaks off when you try to pull it. It's just a nightmare.
So do you remember we went to Pasadena for Garden Com and we went to that dinner, that one place where they had long tables set out, like at some
Oh, the farm
farm?
to table dinner.
Yeah.
What
They,
was the name of that guy who was
I
putting
don't
flowers
remember. I
on?
don't even want to know. We'd just roll our eyes. But they served purslane soup, and I don't think you ate it because it might have been thickened with flour.
I think it was thickened with flour and it also had dairy. That's why I didn't eat it.
Yes, and
What did it taste like?
I took one bite and said, "Okay, I tasted it." And then I'm like, I'm not eating it. Bleh.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So,
Totally understand. It is as if the devil is in it. I don't like it.
no. And
Okay,
the reason it
next.
grows like the devil is in it is because it readily reroots. If you just leave it laying on the ground, it'll reroot
Yeah,
from.
as soon as it gets snapped off, because you go to pull it out of those rocks and you get underneath it and you think you've got that central leader. No, some little piece breaks off and then you've got more of
Or
it.
you drop a little leaf on the ground and it'll root from it.
I
It
hate that
grows as
stuff.
if the devil is in it. And I will
Never
do
a
a quote.
word, truer words spoken.
I told you. That's why we brought up purslane
Good.
so that I could do that quote. And so now I'm going to do a quote for the book. The library in summer is the most wonderful thing because there you get books on any subject and read them each for only as long as they hold your interest, abandoning any that don't, halfway or a quarter of the way through if you like, and store up all that knowledge in the happy corners of your mind for your own self and not to show off how much you know or spit it back at your teacher on a test paper. Polly Horvath.
Who the heck is Polly Horvath and
Uh,
how did she live my childhood?
I don't know. I don't know,
I
but
mean,
we
that's
go
cool.
you go to the
So
library.
before we bring up the book, I just got to say, when I was a child, the library was my absolute favorite place, and I went to the one that was. This won't mean anything to you, but to Oklahoma people, it's the one that's called Belle Isle, and it since has been turned into library offices. But it used to be my local library, right? And the thing I loved about the library was when I was a little kid, we only had one air conditioner in the house, and it was
Uh-huh.
a window unit. So, and my parents had a window unit in their bedroom,
Ditto.
but Nita and I did not have a window unit. It was hotter than Hades upstairs. And so to go to the library where they had air conditioning and be able to sit down and look at books as long as I wanted to, and I would bring home a huge stack, like 13. And so that is exactly my childhood. Thank
That is wonderful. And I will tell you this. I think I've said this before. When I got my driver's license, the very first place I drove all by myself, I'm free. I can go anywhere I want. I didn't go
you
to the
went to the
mall.
library.
I went to the library.
That is
Drove
awesome.
myself to the library.
I just drove myself to school. I had just passed my driver's ed test.
And speaking of the library, you took yourself off to the bookstore and then you start texting me pictures like a maniac. And I was very sensible and mature about the whole thing. And I went to the library and I got the first book.
Yeah, I bought it, and I'm really glad I did because this is beautiful.
It is a beautiful book. The Hidden Histories of Flowers by Maddie and Allison Bailey. And I thought, that sounds quite familiar because we reviewed another one of their books, I think their first book, The Hidden History of Houseplants.
Hmm.
And so this is in the same vein, and they just talk about a whole host of flowers, and they go through and they talk about um, cultural, geographical differences, stories about them, all kinds of good stuff.
Oh yeah, in fact, I just looked at elderflowers,
Uh huh.
and they're talking about. Are they talking about elderberry? I assume. I think they are. Yeah, Sambucus nigra. So Sambucus nigra is the black elder, which I do have that one too. But the elderberries, they're
Yes.
just beautiful. But here it says elder was planted during the Middle Ages in Britain. Elder was planted on or near grave sites and cemeteries as a way of ensuring a peaceful rest for the dead. I didn't know that.
Nice.
There's just some really great, and people in England do love the elder. They love elderberry. They
Yeah.
make cordial out of it and liquor and
Well, and
gin
I
and
was
tonics.
reading a section on passion flowers. You see the picture there? This is to illustrate how
Yes,
beautiful the
they're so
illustrations are.
beautiful. Yeah. That's what got me is the cover. And I know you're not supposed to judge a book by the cover, but then I opened it up and here's Lily of the Valley, Carol.
It's beautiful.
It is really a beautiful book and it's just well written.
Yes, and so this is one of those, and I decided this week that I do judge a book by its cover, by how it feels, by how it's put together, by illustrations, all of the above, size and all that stuff. This is the perfect little gift book, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, you should buy this for a friend. You
I
really
should buy it for
should.
myself.
Well, yes, I did too. I did buy it for myself. The other two books I sent you were just ones for us to review, but I did not buy them. I bought this one because it
Oh,
was so pretty.
I got one of those from the library, but we'll talk about that next week.
Next week. What else do you
So
want to say about this one?
fascinating stories of flora, it says on the cover, and in the description it says, if you find yourself wondering about the deeper meanings behind flowers and are keen to investigate their inner workings and place in history, the hidden histories of flowers is the perfect place to begin your exploration.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful. It would be
Okay.
a good one to give to somebody who already likes flowers a lot.
Yes, that would be you and I.
It's so funny. I turned to page 36 and it says Russia. And I'm like, Russia? And it shows a rose on the side and it's like flowers in the Soviet Union. What other book would you open up and it goes Russia? So it's a very interesting book. It talks about lore and places and history. And then while you were talking, I also read a little piece about the flowers that follow the sun. What's that called again? It's like, it's not alopecia because that's when you lose your hair.
Ah, yeah.
Anyway,
If you hadn't
flowers fall.
asked,
Sir, I know any other time you could do it.
phytotropism.
Phytotropism. I knew she knew that word.
I
Okay,
think
so when
that's
they
what it
follow the
is.
sun, they say it's
Phototropism.
right, which makes even more sense. So the reason they do that is because that way they can show their face to the bees longer because the bees have to be in the sun so that their wings are warm. And bees don't
Yeah.
like to be in the shade. Not any bee likes to be in the shade. That's why if you're a beekeeper and the bees are chasing you, which yes, occasionally it does happen when you screw up, you just walk inside the house. Because you know what? They don't want to be in there with you. And the
They do
minute if they
not.
do come, because I've come in and had them swirling around my veil, and I would just open the door and let them back out.
They want to
Because they're
go
like,
out,
yeah, they don't like the shade.
which
Well,
made them
they know they don't have long in the shade. All
right.
right, ready for the next one? The next quote?
Yes, yes.
Warm summer sun, shine kindly here, Mark Twain. The dirt, which you found, and you go ahead. It's a
Well,
long,
it's the
big
USD
words.
USDA pomological watercolors. So, and this is in 1887, the US Department of Agriculture. They hired artists to draw different fruit varieties and make lithographs for all of the articles and reports and bulletins because, it's harder to get them
Some
photographed. These are
almost
beautiful.
impossible. Are they
These are
beautiful? I haven't
beautiful.
looked at them.
I need you to click on that site and be a little bit more excited about this dirt
Okay, I'm
because
sorry. I kind of have a headache. That's the only reason I'm not excited. Oh, they are beautiful.
they are beautiful. So the collection spans from 1886 to 1942. Most of them were painted between 1894 and 1916.
Mhm.
They are beautiful. There are 7,497 watercolor drawings, 87 line drawings, 79 wax models, and these are all in the public domain, Dee. So if you wanted to, you could download and print that and stick it on your bulletin
Or
board.
you could put it on your blog if you wanted
Yeah.
to. That would
I
be a
mean,
good
they're
way
all in the
to.
public domain. They are beautiful pictures, don't you think?
I
Apple
do.
lover that you are. I knew you'd be excited once you saw it.
There's a lot of apples in here because they grew a lot of apples. Now we are down to
Yeah.
fewer,
Right.
and I guess I'm in the section just with why am I in Prunus right now?
They have all kinds. They have chair.
How are they organized? Do we know?
I don't know how it's organized. I was just scrolling through and saying, that's pretty, that's pretty, that's cool, that's cool, that's nice.
Well, where I started, it started in the Malice, which is apples, and then it moved on to Prunus, which is, of course,
Cherries,
plums, cherries,
cherries.
all of those guys. Yeah, cool.
Thought you'd like
Another
that, Dee.
family. Does it? Oh, yeah, there's a pomegranate. Oh, isn't that pretty?
I told
Hmm,
you. We'll leave a
it
link
is
on our
pretty.
show notes because people want to see that. And now
They should.
I'll do a quote and send us off to rabbit holes. Could the golden time but stay of youth and love and a summer day? Jean Wright.
That's a good one. All
That
right, you
is.
talk about yours first because the second part of it I am also doing, but I've also got my own.
So I wrote about Doretta Claber, who is a lost lady of garden writing. She wrote and illustrated books on rock garden plants, gentians, primroses, and I have her book on violets, which is how I discovered her. So the amazing thing is she illustrated all her books with watercolor paintings and stuff. So she was also an illustrator. Fascinating
Mhm.
lady. As one person said, when she was good, she was very, very good. But if you got on her bad side or wasted her time, she didn't have much to do with you.
Well,
So,
she didn't suffer fools, as they say.
and we are both watching Outrageous, the series on net on BritBox about the Mitford sisters. And so I finished listening to The Six by Laura Thompson, which is all about their history.
They
Quite
have kind of
fascinating.
sad lives, some of them.
Yes,
They made bad
yes.
decisions, some of them.
They
I'm
made
thinking
very
of
questionable
I'm thinking of
decisions.
one in particular.
Unity made some horrible decisions.
Unity is a Unity's a hot mess.
Unity is a hot mess. And you know what happens to
Why?
Unity.
No, I don't remember, and we shouldn't tell people, but I know where she is right now, and I can just tell we're going to hot mess them really quickly.
So maybe, maybe not. Why don't you watch the whole Unity? She did bad things. Diana
Yeah,
was
she did
also,
bad things. Diana was a Nazi.
no, Diana was a socialist. She wasn't a Nazi. She was a
Yeah, but she was,
socialist.
well, she was a fascist. There's a
Fascist,
difference. She was
fascist.
a fascist.
Yes.
But she marries,
Jessica was a communist.
well, that was very popular at the time.
Yes.
Socialism and communism ran together. I personally like Nancy, and I like Debo.
Nancy, Debo turned out the best of all of them as far as
Yes, Nancy has questionable, she's questionable in men. Well, so is
Nancy,
Diana.
and Nancy was a very successful writer.
Writer. Mhm.
Nancy, though, she, well,
We can't tell everything or no one will watch it.
yeah, just say it's a very good series. They have a new episode coming out on Wednesdays. Do you have a rabbit hole, Dee?
I do actually. Let me think of what it is. Oh, Bunny Melon. I've been all things
Bunny,
Bunny.
Bunny Mellon, the
All things
famous,
Bunny right now.
wasn't
She
she a,
designed the first White House garden under Jacqueline Kennedy. She was one of Jacqueline Kennedy's best friends
yes,
throughout her whole entire life,
yes,
and was a quiet, gentle presence. She was quite a bit older, but she was a quiet, gentle presence, and Jacqueline really appreciated her. And all my friends up in Tulsa that listen to this podcast are now laughing because what did Bunny Mellon like? Very manicured gardens with lots of topiary. People still
right,
copy her ideas, but I liked her as a person. She grew up in a very wealthy family, and but she accumulated one of the finest horticultural libraries that's ever been assembled. And then she provided for it upon her death. And I can't remember where it is now, but thank God she did because a lot of historic stuff, a lot of your lost ladies, Bunny Mellon,
right.
a lot of their originals, they're in the library because of Bunny. And so she also collected art and stuff too, but she was really, really interested in horticulture as a serious thing and took it very seriously. And she was married to one guy. I think they got divorced, and then she married this other man who was even wealthier than she was.
I
And
I
he
have either
helped her.
watched a documentary about Bunny Mellon or I have
I watched
read a
several
book
on
about
Netflix.
her.
Yeah, I've read stuff about her, but I really went down the rabbit hole on YouTube because there was a lot, I mean, she's famous. And
Or
because people know she's
the
not
bunny
really in
hole.
the bunny hole. I went down the bunny hole. I have several books on her gardens, and I really love the symmetry of them because, in spite of the fact that I'm not into topiary, my gardens are very symmetrical. They're definitely on a plan. I like formal stuff, but I like informal plantings, which makes
I
me a weirdo, but who cares?
Well, that's what I say. Sometimes the most charming gardens is it's got a very structured little shrub hedge around it, and then in the middle is pure chaos of flowers, and
That
that's
would
what
be
I
mine.
I
Although it
like
doesn't
that.
really have a shrub hedge, but it does have a split rail fence. So, yeah, it was really, really fun. Oh, you were saying that the Mitfords are the Kardashians of their time. That's mean.
No, I didn't say that. I've seen other people say that
Oh,
they were in the 1930s. They were all the time being reported on in the paper, the act things that they were doing and um,
true,
all that
true.
stuff.
They were infamous for sure.
Yes, and they were often in the paper, but not for doing nice things. So I
No, they were
guess
always in trouble.
in August we could have a like, can you believe this? Can you believe that? Because by then everybody should have watched the entire
Yeah,
series.
we should do that. Did you watch episode 3? Because it drops one a
Yes.
week.
Yeah,
We watched
I watched
episode
it.
3. Poor Nancy.
Poor Nancy.
I don't like her husband. I do not.
No, he's not a
Every
likable
time,
person.
every time he comes on, Bill goes, ugh. Because we just can't stand him. He's a bore. Okay.
Well, wait till
But
you see what Nancy does before you decide that, yeah.
are you feeling sorry for him? He won't get a job.
No, I don't feel sorry for him at all, but I'm just saying
Okay.
that Nancy isn't quite as,
No, she's naughty too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, she's not my favorite. I like Debo the best. We both went down the Debo rabbit hole
oh
because
yeah,
she was
several,
the Duchess of
yes, we went down
Devonshire
that, yes, we went down that
and
rabbit hole.
she saved that garden. So this relates to gardening, people. All right, garden commissions. What are you going to do this week?
So I got to water, mow, and weed, and there's an area in the garden back by one of my pawpaws that has gotten overly wild because pawpaws, as we know, are grove forming trees. So it's like there's a lot of little
They're
sprouts
forming
coming up.
groves.
I got to cut some of that back, and then otherwise, I just plan to enjoy summer days, spend that early morning in the garden, getting things done, and then relaxing in the afternoon and reading and doing things like that. How about you?
Bill said to me, I cannot believe you're going out there to work. And I said, no, I'm going out there to piddle. I'm moving little zinnias, little ones, 2 inches tall. Doing slight weeding of the crabgrass, which is trying to take over
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, which why? Why does it do this? And then, I'll keep doing all that. I'm still transplanting, sowing zinnias. I went inside and found some more seeds. I know it's hard to believe, but I have more. And harvesting a few tomatoes here and there. And one thing I wanted to say about zinnias is in a long season like mine, it's good to plant them in stages
It
because
is.
they get mildewy. You just yank those out and move on to the next one. It's no big deal.
Exactly. Exactly. And speaking of moving on, I think it's time for us to move on and wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
And if you subscribe to our free newsletter, and why don't you? You get a link to listen to the podcast a day early. You also get links to products we discuss. Some of these are affiliate links, which are now on a separate, is it tab?
Tab.
A separate tab. Plus, go over to YouTube and see us in person, and you can see me looking all sweaty. Full episodes show up there on Tuesdays.
If you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing extra.
Or if you want to, you can be sweethearts and set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
By the way, everyone, it was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Go watch Outrageous. It's really good. Bye until next week.
Bye. But wait a minute, Dee, did you bring in your flowers?
No, I didn't. They're in a huge vase. Show
Oh,
us yours.
there's
That is
that sweet. Those are
precious.
my little herbs.
They're
This is
sweet
like
as
a
can
bone.
be.
This is my first little
I love that.
marigold, some betony, a clematis, And
I
then, of
don't grow
course,
betony.
to wrap us up, the last of the
Oh, those
Violas.
are very sweet.
Now we can say goodbye. Bye, everybody.